Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial we'll be looking at how to make custom advancement Datagen as well as adding a custom trigger. First of all, we're going to come to the Datagen, and for this we want to create a new Java class called mod advancement provider inside the Datagen type or directory. This will extend the Forge advancement provider and create so you can delete this commentary, it's not important to us. Now in here you want to create custom classes for each different tab of advancement you want to have. So public static class mana generator implements, each of these generator implements the advancement generator interface and overrides the generate method. In here you can create the custom advancements. These will be created doing advancement.builder.advancements, and then you can add a few different things to it. First of all, if you don't put any parent to it, that means you can put parent new resource location end/root. That would target the root, but you can't use this way because it's for removal. I have actually no idea how you would reference vanilla enchantments as roots or as parents. But if you don't put a parent in it, it will create a new tab, and therefore you will have to create display. You can add an item that should be the display. In this case, we'll be looking at items.endCrystal. The title is mostly a component untranslatable with type advancement. Then the tab it is in this case, it would be mana. Then the ID of this, in this case, it would be root. So this will be the root enchantment. ID we already had, and then title. Next, we want the description, which follows a similar pattern, just with title being replaced with description. Then a nullable background color. This is only important if you have if you don't have a root, so this technically declares a single tab. And then you want to add a resource location that points to your texture. You make sure that you add textures slash inside this tab, otherwise it will not work. Text slash block slash crying obsidian, and also make sure to add .png to it. Next, what we need is the frame type, and this frame type we want just single task. Afterwards, we have 3 more booleans. Show toast is this little pop-up on the top right if you complete enchantment. Announce to chat means, well, it announces it to chat, and hidden means it is hidden inside the advancement tab when you look at the advancements. We want none of these, so we continue like this. Then you can add criterions. In this case, we'll be looking at consumed mana. Not that we already have this trigger. If you go to simple criterion trigger and go down the list, you can see, quite frankly, every single trigger there is currently in the game. Item inventory change trigger. Trigger instance that has items. And we just use items.iron, let's say, block. This is for now just a placeholder, and we replace it with the proper trigger we want as soon as we can. Now, after you added the criterion, you can also put some rewards in it. These can range from experience over load up to runnable. That's some kind of server function. In this case, we will not add any rewards, but we want to add. After this, we had display already. We have requirements. You can leave this. You don't need this, and this just you can disable some criterions if you don't want them, but we don't need this. So we just call save, saver, and then the ID. In this case, we will be putting it into our own space and add it to mana/root. Yes. Now you have to register it. First of all, we want to add all the sub-providers into the list over here. That would be a new mana provider or generator. And then you go to your generator and add it down in the generator provider. I just normally put it to true, but usually you just put include server in here. But I put it to true because my setup is built to automatically do this. If you can look in build at Gradle and down to the runs, and then data, you see this means both client and server resources will be run. So no point in putting a include server and include client there, really. And then you put new mod advancements provider, passing in the output registries as well as the file helper. And afterwards, you have to delete this last argument that was just trailing from the implementation earlier. And now you have a running advancement generator that can generate advancements for you. And after the task has run, you can see that in data, mod ID, advancements, mana, root, Control Alt A to add it to GitHub automatically. And you can see that you have a display with background description, although this description does not have any value yet. You can put those to your usual language file in here. And all the information is here. And now you can just run client and test it. And we're back in the world. And if you now put an iron block into our inventory, it will first of all give us a new recipe. But also if you go to advancements and click here, you have this new advancement tab that has the custom element in here. Now going on to creating a custom trigger. This is for, well, obvious reasons a little bit more complicated. You have to do a little bit more than just this. Starting with a new package called advancement, if you don't already have that. Then a few classes, starting with mod Criterion triggers. And then in this case, we'll be looking at how to create a custom mana Criterion trigger. First of all, in the mana Criterion trigger, this extends simple Criterion trigger, and we have to create a of type nothing yet. We have to create a private static or public static class trigger instance extends criterion abstract, not arrow, criterion trigger instance. And you can put the criterion trigger in there and import all the methods that are needed. Now, for this case, we want the criterion to look for a min-max bound of integer for its testing. So we add this to the trigger instance. and to the constructor as well. We override the serialize to JSON method, get the JSON object from below, not return, but get this, and then object.add bounds and bounds the serialize to JSON. We can add this as well, and then return the object. First of all, IntelliJ is going to scream at you that you used an optional as a parameter type, so we disable this by suppressing it for the method. Now we can add to the generic the trigger instance and return trigger instance here. And there we can return a new trigger instance, getting the optional of, what the heck, optional of type context aware predicate and putting it in, as well as getting a min-max bounded ins from JSON. And we can just get pjson.get and then bounds. Make sure that if you read data, it should have the same name as if you write it, because otherwise it will not work. Now, after we have created the instance, this create instance method to be exact, we can then go over to mod criterion triggers. First of all, create a public static void init method that just does nothing, but we will look at this in a second. Then we can convert this into an interface because we do not have anything special going on in here. So we create a mana criterion trigger, mana consumed. Also, we rename this to mana consumed criterion trigger, and then is equal to register mana consumed. Mana consumed criterion trigger : new. We have to create this register method. No, not import it. Create static t extends criterion trigger question mark, and then return t supplier of type t creator, and then we have to do criterion triggers criteria triggers that register with your mod ID, then a colon, then adding a colon and a mana consumed. Well, not the mana consumed. That's just called name. So it adds your mod ID in front of the actual name. So if other mods try to add a mana consumed criterion trigger, it does not interfere with yours. And then you can create it.get. Now we get over why this init method is so important. Given that this is not called automatically, you need to static start the class, and therefore we go into event and mod bus events and add a listener for common setup. Make sure that the method called is static. For some reasons, Minecraft Dev plugin does not automatically do that. And then we can do mod criterion triggers init, ensuring that the criterion triggers are registered and will be used when advancements are loaded from data. Next, what you can do, and this is also the last thing you need to do, go back to the trigger and add methods for Datagen, public static criterion of type trigger instance any. So if any mana is consumed, we create this, but first of all, we're going to create a little helper method called trigger instance, not instance, create, giving a min-max bounds of type, or min-max or ins bounds, and then return mod criterion triggers that the trigger we are currently on, in this case that would be mana consumed, dot create criterion, and then new trigger instance, and taking all the optional off as well as bounds, option not off, but optional empty. Yes, create, and then we can return create bound any. This also, I just realized we forgot something. Public void trigger, taking a server player and any arguments you might want to need. You might want to add, in this case, we want the mana that is consumed to be an argument to the criterion. In this case, we just call trigger with player and then instance, trigger instance, and then we want to create trigger instance that matches amount. We create this method as well. Return bounds that matches amount. And this is the method you call whenever you want to trigger this mana consumption advancement trigger. But for now, we'll be just making some more methods for easier access to this. At least int min, return create min max bounds ins dot min, oh, what? At least min, for example. And now we can go to the mod advancement provider and replace this inventory trigger placeholder with the mana consumed criterion trigger dot any. And also we have to go into the Word file quick. You want to trigger this somewhere, and in this case I just made a test command that just takes in the mount, and you could just call mod criterion triggers dot mana consumed the trigger, and then adding the player and the amount. Usually you would just have to check if the player is server side in the normal context, but I just had a test command doing this, so and now you can close all of it. Rerun Datagen to update the placeholder with the data we wanted. Now you can look at the data for once. You can see the trigger is mana consumed. If you do test and then use 100 mana, it adds the advancements you added. Hope you enjoyed. Consider like and subscribe, and have a great day.